Hello, my name is Balint Teglasy and I'm going to give you a very small seminar on underwater authentication. And check out the 1-minute introduction video from Brew 21 if you haven't seen it yet. Now we're going to dive in a little deeper because it's a hot day. I am researching authentication, also known as the identification of friend or foe. If you want to look at it in a very concise manner, it's just a ping and a pong that comes back with a keyed encryption. And then let's take it underwater. This would be a Christmas tree, this would be an autonomous underwater vehicle, and they have to communicate in ways that you can't do above the surface. They have to communicate acoustically. That's pretty much the only thing that has any serious range underwater. So the Christmas tree would send its timestamp encrypted with the key K, and the AUV that is within range would decrypt that timestamp and answer with its own timestamp that is encrypted with the same algorithm. Then the Christmas tree gets that response and they have an idea of their range, and most importantly, they have verified each other's claimed identity. Currently, wireless underwater communications, if available at all, are conducted via unencrypted bit streams without an authentication mechanism. This means that there is no technology available to confirm claimed identities. Anyone's device can pretend to be anyone else's device. But it is essential that we also include these underwater assets into our Internet of Industrial Things, that is offshore. And they're currently severely constrained compared to other sort of physical layers for communication, such as the radio frequency that surface vessels typically use, or optical methods that you would have at home in your fiber optics, although underwater you would probably do it as free space optics. And yeah, here you can see the range of acoustics is very proper, but then the data rate is very low. So we need to have our own methods developed for how to fit it into so little data. And I was extremely lucky to discover that the only standard for underwater acoustical communication, Janus, was developed by someone who was sitting just down the hall in the same building. Even though the Janus standard is originally a NATO standard, it is now the only standard, so it is the one that we have to build on if you want to reach interoperability. Here we can see all the different options that we've looked at. Electromagnetic communication, basically your home Wi-Fi, works for about 15 centimeters underwater. Otherwise it's shielded. So you can use that to exchange keys, but you have to be docked to do that. Then the free space optical, basically just blinking lights, works up to 100 meters, very dependent on the turbidity of the water. But then acoustic communication, well, that goes all the way up to 10 kilometers, so we can use it for some serious access control for said authentication. It still has serious challenges, which is why not everyone's doing it, which is why this is original research. But building on the Janus standard as a physical layer, we will make sure that the other layers of the protocol stack are available and secure. So right now, strategically speaking, we are here at level 1.5. We have a medium access control included in the Janus standard, but we don't have application presentation, session, transport, and network layers. So we're working our way up. If we look at the Janus baseline packet, it's just 64 bits. That's much smaller than any other packets in any other packet switch networks these days. Here you can see the bits 1 to 64, and then a lot of non-payload components have to be there, like the cyclic redundancy check for error correction, otherwise our data loss, our packet loss would go through the roof. So that needs to be unencrypted. Then there is this packet header that Janus specifies that is basically addressing, and we would prefer to keep that unencrypted just to respect the standard. And then this is what we are working with, just 34 bits. 2 of those we take as a flag, then we are down to 32. We like it because that's a power of 2. And there are actually rather old, kind of vintage encryption methods for block sizes that are just 32 bits. So we can fit it in there by just using some of the methods that were popular at the beginning of the 90s at the latest, which is when computers were constrained in similar ways as we are still constrained underwater. So the TCP/IP world, as it has governed the IoT developments over the water, will be our inspiration underwater. We know where we have to go. We just have to find ways to fit it in this notoriously unreliable and low bandwidth physical layer that is the acoustic communication. So we choose to use these 2 flags as something like the SYN and ACK flags in the TCP handshake. So we are looking at lightweight block ciphers to provide the encryption as part of the authentication. And even when the mathematicians say lightweight block ciphers, actually they mean not as lightweight as we need them. We need 32 bits, so that means very, very lightweight. It's half as the 64-bit that is typically referred to as lightweight in other circles. So I've found 5 shortlisted block ciphers. The RC5, Skipjack, SPAC, K1032, and Hummingbird 2. They're all kind of exotic. They're not part of the data encryption standard or the more modern advanced encryption standard. But I really need these because I have a block size that has to fit in my Janus payload. And out of these, then I would prefer to use those that have a key size that is large. Because I have ways of either scheduling keys or exchanging keys on other physical layers that will allow me to use the security advantages of a large key, even though the block size would be very small. Also, we don't want to deal with an initialization vector, so we exclude the Hummingbird 2 that has some stream cipher properties, not necessarily blocked as much as the others. And we want to use those that are software optimized because we know that our AUV is going to have some sort of software on it. We're not going to install microcontrollers just for the task of encrypting and decrypting. So these are humble beginnings, but we did manage to fulfill our own requirements with our own specifications. In the future, we would like to use physically unclonable functions, for example, to derive the keys, so there wouldn't be a need for key scheduling nor for key exchange. And we need to solidify all of that protocol stack until we have something like the transport layer security just underwater in much smaller packets that are much more likely to be lost somewhere. So do hit me up if you want to work on this. I am looking for collaboration opportunities.